What's up, good people? What's up, good people? In partnership with WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network, this is When Men Open Up, a show where we are redefining manhood through transparency. My name is Dominique.
And I'm Dexter.
And we are back again. It's been a
couple weeks, man. Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks.
Well, first of all, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you all. But yeah, our last show was Christmas Eve. And so here we are, the first show of our second season. So,
it seemed like it's been longer than that, man. I was preparing for this, and I was just thinking to myself, man, it's been a while, and I really do miss it. But we on a new season,
yes,
season 2, and we have an amazing series, talks I wish I had with my dad.
Yeah,
and let's give them like a quick brief background of how we came up with this, because this ain't the first time we've been on this.
No. So for those who've been following Dominique and I for a period of time, last year we had a discussion called Conversations I Wish I Had with My Dad. And this was actually before the shows When Men Open Up officially launched. But It was a very impactful show. We were blessed to have some very outstanding distinguished gentlemen join us and really open up about, particular conversations that, we wish we had with our fathers when we were younger, things that as men that we've encountered, that we kind of wish we had the foresight, to have those conversations when you're younger. And so it was kind of like a hindsight 2020.
Right.
Me as an adult, I wish my dad talked to me about this. And, I think the response to that particular show was very, very impactful. And so when we started When Men Open Up, Dominique and I have been really discussing the necessity, to revisit that conversation. And so this will be a modified version of that, but it's going to be very profound. One of the things that Dominique and I both recognize is that for the reality is that a lot of our viewing audience doesn't have a relationship with their fathers. A lot of our viewing audience has a relationship with their fathers, but the emotional side of the father wasn't there. There was a physical father, physical presence, but an emotional absence. And so and coupled with our own experiences, we just kind of are bringing those things together and really hoping to do a good job as far as this particular topic.
Most definitely. So for the next few weeks, maybe even several weeks, we're going to be on the series Talks I Wish I Would Have had with My Dad. And there's so many different areas that we can go into and tap into when it comes down to talks and the conversation that we wish we would have had, and how it could have made an impact in our life and affected us. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that we wish we would have talked about when we was younger, and it has played a role it has played a big role in our life.
True. True.
And I think the important thing is, since we didn't have those talks, we can start having those talks now, so we can kind of break that cycle. So I know there's a lot of talks I didn't have with my dad, but those very talks I didn't have, my dad didn't have those talks either with his dad.
True.
So now I can say, this is going to continue to be a cycle, or this cycle stops with me.
Definitely. And I'm a father of 2 young sons, and one of the things in being a parent, I've learned to have a lot more compassion towards my father, and I really understood that he was working with what he knew. He was working with the information that he had, and so he did the best job he could with the information that he had. And so now that I'm a father, I want to do the best that I can. And one of the things that I've really understood, that growing up with my father, we had some of these conversations, but they were super awkward. And I think the awkwardness of those conversations shortened it, and we didn't really go as deep as was necessary. And here's the thing: when you don't have the conversation, someone else is going to educate you.
That's true.
And so a lot of the education that I received on some of these subject matters, I received from the streets. I received from the wrong crowds. I received from people who were learning it just as fast as I was learning it. So I got a lot of misinformation because I did not have these particular talks with somebody who was older and somebody who was more invested in my future, and that person being my father. So I'm excited about this, and I trust that this is going to be quite prolific and quite transformational. And
I really like what you brought up. I think in my younger 20s, that's one of the biggest things I really had to come in understanding with, that, what, my dad didn't have his father. He really couldn't talk about a lot of these things because, number one, he didn't have the awareness.
Sure.
Number two, he just simply didn't know how. Nobody was there in his life when he was younger to even take time out with him and say, hey, look, this X, Y, and Z. And I think as men, it's so important for us to have that understanding so we won't have that resentment, we won't have that anger, or even the disappointment with our fathers. But we on a great series, Talks I Wish I Had with My Father or My Dad, and the first topic is spitting game. Spitting game. And when it came to dating, when it came to women, when I was in middle school, high school, when it came down to girls, those conversations were slim to none with my dad. I didn't know where it started when it came down to talking to women, red flags I had to look out for. And just like you stated, since he didn't have those conversations, I just had those conversations with other folks. And I just always remember, I'm just glad that I had some type of, some level of wisdom just to understand, like, look, what this man is saying to me don't feel right. You get what I'm saying? What they're saying to me don't feel right, whether it's from an uncle, whether it's from my dad's friend, or whatever the case may be. The barbershop, you hear a lot of different conversations in the barbershop. And it's no wonder why a lot of women don't want to take their sons to get a haircut. But that's another story. But it really affected me when it came down to dating. And I think when it came down to dating, I just didn't know, okay, what was the point? Okay, what was the goal? What are some things I need to be asking? What are some things I need to be watching out for, and so forth. And we only had that. My dad was just the type where, hey son, if you happy, I'm happy. And I'm not like, Dad, that don't really do too much for me. But that's really all he really knows. So when we had the birds and the bees conversation, that's just what it was. It was just the birds and the bees. It wasn't no in-depth conversation. Me and you had an episode about that. And after we had that conversation, he already knew that, okay, I'm just going to get him that box of condoms, and that was it. You know what I'm saying? He had the banana. He demonstrated.
Not the banana and
that was it. And that was it, man. But I mean, and I appreciated it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I can be angry and upset and be like, you know what? He could have went more in depth in different areas when it came down to women and dating and developing a relationship and so forth. But he did it. You know what I'm saying? And he was available to do it. And I really appreciate that to him, from him. But, that's where the ball stopped.
But listen, y'all were doing a little better than my father and I. And, as we had that previous conversation, I said, hey, look, my dad asked me one question. He said, son, are you having sex? And I lied and said, yeah, and came home and I found a box of condoms on my counter. And, at that age, I took that as an endorsement to go out there and really start becoming sexually active.
Right.
And the irony is that we never had the dating conversation ever, and so it was, hey, if you happy, I'm happy, and so once again, I learned a lot of stuff from some older fellas in the neighborhood, you know, and they didn't always steer me in the right direction. So thank God that I'm saved, have lived a little bit, and you know, I can talk about those experiences, you know, on the other side of it.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
No, well, I was going to say, you know, I think for those who are, you know, in those type of situations, you know, it's necessary that we kind of start, you know, cluing them in on some things that will help in the art of spitting game. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And just talking about this makes me, I'm not gonna lie, I think a goal for this week for me is just to ask them, you know, why after all these years you never brought after all these years we never talked about dating, you know, when you heard that I was gonna go take someone out, you know, why you didn't ask, okay, what did y'all talk about? Or you know, what's so special about this person?
Real.
You know,
that's good.
You know, how do you know that this person is the one? You know, it could be any question. It's really going more in depth to where it's not just, well, that's good, you know, just starting somewhere. I think when you always start somewhere, it can lead to something else. Once again, I'm not gonna beat him up because he's working with what he knows, but it's gonna drive me to really just have that conversation with him. You know, hey, look, I was dating and we never had any conversations. You know, when I brought somebody home, you didn't think, you know, what's so special about this person when I brought him home? You get what I'm saying? But I think the biggest thing for me that I thought would have made a huge difference, and I did a blog post on this, is I think a lot of men are teaching boys that they have to impress women. And I think this is really leading a lot of young boys and a lot of men the wrong way. I think you have a lot of men who would say, you know, nice guys finish last, but at the end of the day, that's technically your fault because you allow what someone does to you to an extent. And the thing is, this equal playing fields. I believe when your mindset is to impress someone, what's really taking place is you're more focused on appealing to that person, basically a stranger, appealing to a stranger that you don't even know has the personality that you prefer, is really living a life that you agree with, and so forth. The list goes on and on and on. And you'll hear women complain that, you know, all he does, you know, these men in my inbox, they're saying what they can do for me, da 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 da. But he was taught,
there you go.
you know, he was taught that I have to really showcase these things and really display these things to grab your attention. Unfortunately, we're getting away from the connection piece. You get what I'm saying? And it's almost as if a lot of men are having this understanding that women are more focused on what you can do for me and not necessarily the connection. Not saying either the two are not important, but the connection piece is very important as well. So this is really leading men in the wrong direction because the only thing you really owe that person is your true self. You know, that person should know who they're really dealing with, what type of person you are. And then that's supposed to really help you out go on from there. You know, if there's any chemistry, there's going to be chemistry there. And that's another reason why after you get into that relationship, you know what, that brother don't do everything like he used to do. Well, he was doing that because the goal was to quote unquote get you. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to grab your attention. I'm going to do whatever it takes. If you're talking to someone else, I'm going to do whatever it takes for you to see that I'm the one that's more worthy than the next person.
Man, you said a lot. You said a lot of the stuff I wanted to say, man. So, but that's all good. I mean, you know, we're indoctrinated at a very young age to think that our masculinity and who we are as men are tied to our ability to provide. That is a component of manhood, but it's not the totality of what being a man is. And so, like you said, you know, we're told that if you have stuff and you have the ability to flaunt stuff, materials, that, you know, that's how you get the girls. And the sad narrative is that once again, we're not making the real connection when we're solely hiding behind our ability to purchase things. I had a conversation with my brother a couple weeks ago, and I have some very beautiful nieces, and my nieces are coming to that age in life where they are looking at boys, and I'm gonna have to start playing the crazy uncle role here pretty soon.
You don't gotta do that.
But he said that his my niece had asked him, because she have a boyfriend. And he asked a very interesting question, and I think this is a great question. He said, "Why do you want a boyfriend?" And I'll leave her response, between those two. But the reality is that we as men, we know to pursue, but we don't always know why we're pursuing. When it comes to I was thinking about when I was a young man, and truth be told, I didn't really per se want a girlfriend because, for what, I didn't want to, I felt like I was going to be tied down and holding hands. And I mean, there were seasons where I would have a girlfriend. There were seasons that I didn't, and I was a really awkward guy. But the truth of the matter is that, we have to be able to ask ourselves, what is it that we really want? We're talking about spitting game, and I'm assimilating this to the fact that we don't always know the totality of the pursuit.
Right.
When my father gave me the box of condoms, what he was saying is that it's okay to go out and have sex. But once again, so my focus became, I'm chasing her to have sex, not to make the connection. And we have to get to the point where, it's necessary where we ask ourselves, what are we pursuing this for?
Yeah.
And that's a question that needs to be asked on both sides, the pursuer and the one who's being pursued. And I think in doing that, what will happen is we'll have better relationships. What we'll have relationships that are really grounded in people wanting to get to know each other without the anticipation of there just being a sexual act on the other side.
Most definitely. I mean, you said a bunch there, man. And I think to even add to that is really getting the habit of really defining these things. When you're stating that you want a relationship, what type of relationship are you referring to?
Yeah.
What does that entail? When you say you love someone, what does that actually mean? When I remember men used to always say, you gotta treat women right. But I think we have to really go further with that. What does that mean? I mean, we have to really get in the habit of really defining everything to really develop or gain some level of understanding.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking to boys, what does that mean? Let's give some examples. You get what I'm saying? Because I just watched the video and I seen all these guys. They was at this gas station, and it was a joke that, women just hate going to a gas station when there's a whole bunch of men there, because they just know that all the men are just going to go after her, and they just don't got time for all that.
Yeah.
And all these men were really just aggressively pursuing her at the point where they was really making her feel uncomfortable. And we have to really, have this conversation with our young boys.
We do.
That, that's not pursuing. You get what I'm saying? I mean, when it comes down to a woman really feeling uncomfortable to a point where they don't want to stop to a gas station and get some gas, that's problematic. You get what I'm saying? Because now it's, even though you're pursuing her, it's only really about you. Her thoughts, her feelings, her emotions at that very time does not even matter.
Yeah.
If it did, you'll probably take time out to understand, okay, this is probably not the best time, or this person is in a rush, or whatever the case may be. You're giving her perspective, her thought, some level of value. And I think because of how we were raised, we have this, we mix this level of control in masculinity. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
And as soon every time we mix control into something, that's when we're gonna have problems. You get what I'm saying? And that's so problematic that only our values, only our mindset, only our attitude is what's relevant.
And, I mean, and what you're speaking to once again is a cultural thing, you know, a societal thing where we're indoctrinated once again to view women in a certain light, in a certain manner. That, you know, well, you should like all of this attention that you're getting. You know, this means that I find you attractive. And once again, there's a breakdown in the ability to make a real connection, because once again, you know, catcalling or whatever it is, you know, you're doing this for the sake of what? You know, is it necessary?
Right.
If you're really trying to build a valued relationship, you know, your whole approach would be totally different than just doing that. You know, and so it's just, you know, we just got to do a better job, you know, as far as, once again, raising our young men and having these conversations, you know. And once again, listen, I was that guy, you know, a long time ago, you know, that it was the norm, you know, it was just the accepted norm, but they didn't make it right. And so it took somebody, you know, with some wisdom, some age and experience to say, hey, you know, there's a different way about doing it. You know, and the funny thing about it is that, you know, I used to go to the club all the time, and, you know, I can only imagine, but you're probably using the same pickup line. Like, you know, if you think about it, like, you got this young lady who's heard the same line, like, from 20 different people, you know. And so there's no originality, you know, in what it is. It's a societal thing, you know.
Is,
and so, you know, we definitely have to get to the point where, you know, we challenge the norm. Just because it's the norm does not mean it's right. And so we have a great responsibility in really training up our youth in the direction that they should go.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about, you know, even the conversation, you said that when you would bring a young lady to the house and your dad never asked you, okay, what did you see in her? Or what did y'all talk about? You know, that's a great question, you know, because one of the questions that I think I would have liked to have had with my father, one of the questions that I would hope he would ask me, because it would have put me in the right context, was, you know, what do you have to offer in a relationship? My first thought would have been, well, I got money, I got a job or whatever. But, you know, beyond the extent of that, you know, how are you going to benefit this person?
Right.
Like, what do you really have to contribute outside of the context of money? What if she makes more money than you do? Then, you know, how are you measuring yourself up? If money was the first thing that you said you can offer, and she makes more money than you, then what do you have to offer her?
Right.
You know, and I probably would have been scratching my head, you know, and so that's something that we have to get to the point, once again, when you're having real relationships, what do you have to offer in that relationship? And it has to go beyond the extent of just materials.
Yeah. And I want to go into some of the things, and those of you that's enjoying the podcast, please share the video. I want to go into some other things that we should be teaching young men, and we already hit on it a few times, but I think a big thing is just learning how to be vulnerable to women, and how impactful that is to women, because that's really what they are trying to get into in the first place. They're really trying to, you know, get into that skull. They're really trying to see what exactly are we feeling, why do we feel that way. And I mean, to be quite honest, I mean, when it come down to spitting game, quote unquote, you know, at the end of the day, it's how much time and how much effort are you gonna go into really understanding who that person is. You know, how often are you gonna actually care? You know, how often, you know, are you gonna take time out to really see what their interests are, what their desires are, why they have those desires, and so forth. I think at the end of the day, it's really teaching them how to understand the person in front of you.
Exactly.
It's just that. I mean, it's really just, when we talk about quote unquote spitting game, it's all about social skills. And a lot of us don't have the social skills because we don't know how to be vulnerable. We don't know how to ask the right questions.
Exactly.
We don't know what exactly we're trying to search for, why that is important. And if we really just teach them how to ask certain questions, how to get people to really dig within themselves, that'll make people think, wow, you got me thinking about things I ain't never thought about. I ain't never thought about that. You know what? Oh, okay, now, and so forth and so forth. And I think that's very, very impactful. We can really teach them that what the very thing you think is going to shy them away is the very thing that they're actually interested in. And that's that vulnerability.
Man, brother, that's a hard one because
it really, I'm not denying that.
It's hard because you're exposing yourself to somebody that you don't know, and you're not just on the surface.
Right.
You're not. It's not a superficial conversation, but it's real dialogue. But once again, that speaks to the pursuit of having real relationships.
Exactly.
Even if you think about the connotation of spitting game, what is the end result of the game?
That's it.
How can you measure if you've won the game? And so, if the aim is to have a real relationship with somebody, then vulnerability is necessary. I was thinking that, sometimes people find validation in relationships.
Yeah.
And sadly, a lot of times people compromise their integrity in their character for the sake of maintaining a relationship. But once again, it's because the relationship was built on a flawed pretense. And so you never have the chance to be vulnerable and really get to know that real person.
Most definitely.
And that, I hope, is the pursuit of, relationships. When you can really get to the point and say, hey, look, this is who I am. This is what I have to offer. You can take it or leave it. Take me, accept me as I am, and I'm going to do the same for you.
And to add on to that too, I wish he would have said, you know what, before you try to get with anybody, you got to understand yourself first.
Man, factuals.
You get what I'm saying? I mean, really have a sense of identity, self-awareness of yourself, your emotions, why you think the way you think, why you feel the way you feel. The list goes on and on and on, because that in turn is going to affect how you communicate with other people.
True.
You get what I'm saying? It's a lot of things that a lot of classes and training that we done been involved in, and ironically, a lot of those exercises that we have went through, it's about learning about yourself.
True.
How can we really help someone if we lack so much misunderstanding within ourselves?
Yeah.
And that is a relevant question to ask. I mean, we have to understand who we are, and I think that would have really forced me to sit my behind down. You get what I'm saying? Before I even tried to reach any type of level with anyone else, and really just say, all right, Dominique, you got to really understand who you are.
Man, that's good. Another thing I think I wish I would have had in a conversation was, you have to have the ability to articulate your expectations.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times in relationships, we make assumptions that we never verbalize, and we penalize the person, and they don't even know we're holding them to that standard.
Exactly.
And so, and you're setting yourself up for a relationship disaster, because you're always subjecting this person to a judgment that they don't even know exists.
Right.
And so, that's one of the things I really wish that in dialoguing with my father, that he said, look, you have to bring everything to the table, be willing and open to have this conversation with this person and see how they feel about it.
Right.
There's been so much stuff that I just hope that people would catch by osmosis that they never caught.
Most definitely.
And I was at fault because I never said how it made me feel. And so, but I was trying to hide behind an exterior that said, well, I'm okay, I can handle it, I'm tough. But the reality is that if you're in a relationship, it's a partnership and y'all are doing it together. So why be silent about the stuff that you need in that relationship?
Yeah, and some people will go even further to say, expectations are a bad thing. We all have expectations. It's just like what Dex just got done saying. It's when we don't verbalize them. Yeah. It's having the expectations and expecting that person to have an understanding of your expectations without even verbalizing it. And that does cause a lot of confusion, a lot of stress, a lot of frustration, and so forth. And another thing, man, is identifying how that person handles conflict. I think that's and how I handle conflict. Yeah. And we can't go too much further for the sake of time, but that's one of the things I really learned, that how you and that person handle conflict is so important, regarding your anger, your frustration, your communication. Why does the conflict even occur? Yeah. You get what I'm saying? Because sometimes we're in conflict and it shouldn't even be a conflict, it's just a misunderstanding. And if you don't know how to really handle conflict, you got to get to the bottom of a lot of things, on why you just seem to always get into some level of conflict, why there's always a misunderstanding, why you're not asking certain questions, why are you going there with certain people, why you're not able to identifying certain behaviors to let you know what, this may not go in the right direction. You get what I'm saying? Because there is some people where, you just can't go that in depth with. They're just stuck in their ways, and you just got to understand, okay, should I keep it going or should I go the other way? But conflict resolution is so important in relationships.
Man, and I know we run out of time, so I just want to throw this freebie out here real quick. Another thing that I wish I knew back then was that there is a difference between dating and courting, and two different things. And it's okay to be exclusive.
Yes,
and it's okay to have the conversation and say, look, I'm seeing other people because I'm looking at you as a friend. Like, it's almost like
people respect that.
But it's a scary conversation. It
is,
and so you find yourself stuck in a relationship that you don't want to be in, trying to create arguments, and it wasn't even that serious. Just say, hey, look, I think we're better off as friends. But then also, but because you're dating doesn't necessarily mean that it's leading to being married either. Once again, that's courtship. That's the identification of the thing. So, it's okay to have friends, and I say that from the standpoint of, when I was dating in high school and stuff, like, I couldn't have any female friends. It was weird. Like, my interaction had to be, at a minimum. But the reality is that we didn't have these conversations. So it was just awkward. But the reality is that, enjoy, but have an understanding of what the relationship is. Yeah. Have an understanding of what you're pursuing. Once again, if you're spitting game, what is the end result of it? What is the actual game that you call yourself playing? And so I will always be an advocate of real relationships, not hiding behind the facade of anything. Listen, if you work at Subway and you make $7.25, man, be the best sandwich maker and tell it, look, I'm gonna take you over here, I'm gonna hook you up this BLT, and be happy with your ability to do so. Man, I could go so many places. I just want to say one more thing.
Go ahead, man.
I love my wife. I thank God for her. You probably heard this story. Listen, my wife is a trooper, and when I met my wife, I had the big truck, big rims, big TV, and like $2 in my bank account because I was trying to hide behind materials and stuff. But she helped me to open up, you know what I'm saying, and to become vulnerable. And I appreciate that, I was somebody who had dreams, and she stuck with me as I was working those things out. But the reality is that even in meeting my wife as a young adult, I was still hiding behind the mindset that the way to a woman's heart was to appeal to her senses from the standpoint of me providing these materials. But it was in the true deeper connection that we really found out that, you know, we're in this together. And so I just want to say that, you know, as you make those real connections, you'll be surprised that what really blossoms from your ability to be transparent and be vulnerable with people.
Most definitely, man. Why you keep on going?
I know, I'm done.
We gotta end off, y'all. We gotta end, and I'll just end on this note. For the guys, whether you have sons or not, you know, take time out to meditate and think about those conversations you wish you had, and just make a commitment to yourself and to your kids and future kids that you're gonna have those conversations, because the cycle got to stop somewhere. Definitely. You know, the conversations I didn't have were the same conversations my dad didn't have with his father as well. So it stops with me. So I'm gonna make an effort to even though I'm grown and I'm married, I'm still gonna have those conversations with him, and I'm gonna make sure I have those conversations with my kids as well. But this is when men open up. A show of we are redefining manhood through transparency. If you have any questions, any feedback, you can email us inboxes when men open up at gmail.com. Any events coming up, any conferences, programs you want us to participate in, you can email us inboxes, and we'll get to that, and we'll see how we can participate and help you all out. Go ahead.
And one thing, and while we're doing the subject of conversations I wish I had with my dad, if there's a particular topic that you would like for us to address, feel free to make a comment on this video. Feel free to inbox us once again at whenmenopenup@gmail.com.
But that is the show. If you loved it, share it. This is When Men Open Up, a show where we are redefining manhood through transparency. My name is Dominique.
And I'm Dexter.
And we are out. Thank you so much.